Pathmonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in the buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding Pathmonk to your website in seconds, letting the AI do all the work and increase conversions while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode of Pathmonk Presents. Today, we are joined by Drew Chambers. He is the EVP of Marketing at Harper. Drew, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Rick.
Of course, excited to get into it, Drew. Maybe let's start with the basics, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the big idea behind Harper? And maybe, if you were to explain it to a friend over coffee, how would you describe what you do on a daily basis?
It's interesting because I'm the least technical person at my company. So I'm often asked this question by friends. And what I say is very simply, we make applications and websites faster, more performant. Harper is at its core a distributed application platform or a platform as a service that combines a number of core functionalities. So database, caching, messaging, application API layers, all in one in-memory process. And so you can, globally distributed, run a mesh of essentially those at the edge and make your application, your website faster, more user-friendly, create a better experience for your customer. And really, the people that we work with are the largest, digital commerce brands in the world. And so, we're talking about massive product catalogs. We're talking about, millions upon millions of visitors a month. And this stuff really matters. And so that's, at its core, what Harper does.
All right. Okay. And I was going to ask, and you touched on it briefly, the type of business, let's say, that you guys work with. It sounds like it's more on the enterprise, more, the more, let's say, traffic they have and the more the resource heavy their platforms are, websites are, the better for you guys because you can help them out with that, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I think the value proposition for the largest digital commerce players is magnified, right? Because every single millisecond matters, and if you're competing against other behemoths, you want to get those marginal gains. But certainly, small and medium-sized businesses could find advantages in what Harper does. But it's not typically who we talk to. We're talking to large development teams and engineers and large marketing teams that are really trying to say, like, okay, we know that Google and ChatGPT and all of these different methods of us acquiring traffic require that we have a really good site experience for our users. What are things that we can do to improve core web vitals, to improve the speed and performance of our website, to improve the checkout process and make it quicker and more seamless for the user? And that's where Harper really shines.
Got it. Yeah, it's paramount for those kind of companies to have that, as you said, those marginal gains, that
Yep.
edge, especially when it comes to search, and that it's a plethora of, it's a cascade of really factors that play into them showing up. First place, second place, that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
think about it, right? Like, think about your own behavior, right? If you're searching for a yoga mat, and you're not going to look at the ninth spot for the most part. You're going to look at what are the top two, and probably not going to scroll, and I'm going to click on that shopping tile at the top of the results page, and so that really matters. And Google has shared all the factors that, well, not all the factors. They've shared most of the factors that go into how they select what goes into that first spot, right? It's relevancy, it's speed, it's LCP, it's INP, it's CLS, it's how relevant is the landing page experience? How likely is somebody to convert when after they've clicked on that product tile? And so all of those things factor in. And again, if you're a team that's basically saying like, hey, we need to get more conversions with the same amount of traffic, we need to make our budget go further, we need, CPMs are increasing, so what can we do to ensure that we're we're comping against last year and doing better? You start to think about all of the technical components of your back end that could be improved.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you guys help with that side of things. And to stay on the topic, how do you, on the receiving end of that search, let's say, get discovered by people, by your ICP, if you want to keep the marketing lingo, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I guess in a way, if you can expand on the marketing channels that have become your go-to for bringing in new customers at that point, based on the performance that you guys had so far and how people are finding you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we do a lot of the traditional stuff, right? Like paid media and trying to improve our organic discoverability through content creation and whatnot. I would say, the best source of leads for us to date has really been through one, syndicated content. So highly relevant, outcome story driven content that's basically saying like, here's what one large retailer did to prepare for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Here's what they saw in terms of, traffic lift, improvement in SERP, and improvement in organic traffic conversion rates, like all the things that they would be looking at from a KPI perspective. Putting those in trusted kind of third party resources for the people that we talk to, which is in general, it's the leadership of the marketing team and it's the leadership of the development and engineering team. So, it's a technical team and it's a marketing team, and they're coming together and saying, okay, how do these two things work together? What can I do technically to improve my SEO and my paid media efficacy? And what kind of budget do I have to outline for that type of effort? So syndicated content's been really powerful. I'd say, lead gen, paid ads as I think is probably the case for most of your audience. Those, if you have the right message, if you have something that's really targeted, if you have the right landing page experience, those tend to perform really, really well. We have a lot of technical webinars and workshops and sort of a knowledge transfer that we do on an ongoing basis. That does really, really well. And then really the two largest drivers for us is existing customer base and channel partners. So we work very closely with large CDNs to provide our solution on top of what they can provide. And that's a huge entry point for us with some of the clients that we talk to. So all of those in various allotments is sort of the secret recipe for us.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. So syndicated content, webinars, right? So you're already touching on something that I really wanted to, let's say, follow up with, in a sense that you got experience in marketing, lots of it, right? So from that experience, you can draw from this, working at Harper, or even from your past experience. What do you think actually makes a website convert? And I guess with that, if you have, it doesn't have to be anything, specific. It could be tools, tactics, frameworks, even that you've used that you've seen. Oh, this really works, right? Is there anything that you can share with our audience in terms of what works?
For sure. I think there's a lot that goes into having a really successful website. I think to take a step back, right? The most successful websites that I've worked with, and the most successful brands that I've worked with, have always done a tremendous amount of work to build the community and understanding around their brand and their product. So I think without that, you could have the best website in the world, and you're not going to convert at the same rate as maybe another company that has maybe a lesser quality website, but has put tons and tons of effort into building sort of like that evangelist community of people that are, shouting about your product from the rooftops. That's always going to be your most powerful tool, right? It's why so many brands are doing, the influencer thing. Now, I think consumers have started to catch on and have gotten a lot more savvy about like, hey, I'm not just going to, just because Kim Kardashian said this is good, I'm not going to
Right.
necessarily
Especially
like
with AI, right? There's a lot of that too. So,
exactly. So, but it still is paramount. And I think like the thing that I talk about with my team and in my past life when I worked with lots of brands, I would always say like, think about the last time that you had a truly positive buying experience in real life, like a human to human interaction. Like think about all of the elements that went into that, right? You were probably talking to a salesperson or maybe the owner of the store, and they were nice, but they weren't pushy. They weren't following you around, but they were answering your questions. They had all of the, relevant information. Maybe they had a little bit of an anecdote. They told you that this product is the only one that you could find in town because they had gone to some island and procured it, whatever it was. But you had some kind of story interaction that really moved the needle for you, right? Moved you from, I've discovered and am interested in this product too. I'm going to purchase this product today. And the best websites and the best companies out there today are able to translate that into a digital experience, right? So think about all of the elements of your website. And I'm sure Pathmonk, you mentioned it before, like, the case studies, having, a helpful chat bot, a seamless checkout experience. All of those things need to be present in your online experience. So you need to have something that's not like, I don't want 15 pop-ups on my page. I don't want to be clicking out of things. That's the noisy salesperson that's just tracking me around. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. I have the relevant information. The product description is not 2 lines. It's maybe, a description of the product and then maybe a little bit of a story about how I, if it's clothing, how I might wear this or where I might wear this. And I can see this on myself. I can, really take it that extra step again, like that in real life experience. And then the checkout is obviously like, I'm ready, I'm going to do this. And, I put in my info and you've got Apple Pay, you've got Google Pay, you've got Shop Pay, everything's ready to go. And I don't have a second to think twice. I've made the purchase. And the closer you can get to that, the more successful your website's going to be. So that was probably a very long rambling answer, but really it's the 2 pieces. It's build the community, build the story around what you've created, and get those people that, even if your website was built, on Windows 95, you would still get people converting. And then do all of the legwork to make an experience that feels as close to being, in a pop-up shop as possible.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on something very important when it comes to telling the story, right? There's many websites and brands out there that do it right, and it shows in the performance, it shows in the revenue or whatever, as opposed to just bombarding you with features and benefits. And it's great and all, but the story makes a difference. It's what someone remembers, right? It's that salesperson at the local shop that gives you that experience, right? So yeah, I think
well, it's gotta feel genuine. I think that's the other thing.
Right.
It's like we really are in an era where being genuine matters. So many brands have caught on to what I was just saying, right? That they then tell the story and they made it up, right? Like it comes off as hollow. So you really like if you don't have that story, right? If you're like a bunch of you know venture capitalists that came together and decided like, hey, there's a space in the market and we're just going to make the best X. And you don't need to tell a story about like your grandmother introduced you to this blah blah blah. Just be genuine. Just say like, look, nobody was doing this, we're going to do it well. Tell the real story, be genuine. That stuff does come across. I do think like we are we're living in an age of where we're bombarded by information, and there's, just a plethora of reviews that you can go to. You can go to Reddit, you can go to, again, whatever your product is, the relevant review website. And the consumer's kind of just like, I don't know what to believe, and how many of these are paid, and I'm talking the full spectrum too, right? So everything from like buying stocks all the way up to buying enterprise technology, right? You're on G2 Crowd, you're on, Reddit. All of these things you're kind of like looking at through a lens of you know disillusionment, and so trying to cut through that, trying to be genuine, trying to be real. Like those are the stories that we read about, and those are the brands that we see that are doing the best.
Be genuine, tell a real story.
Yeah,
got it. So to tell a real story, right? Let's stay on that topic. Maybe let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk about you as a leader, Drew. So what is the main focus that you have on a daily basis, or your typical workday, if you will, and what are the main things you focus on a day to day to make it happen?
Yeah. So, I'd say a big part of my job is managing my team and helping my team be successful. I do that, and we have a big belief at Harper around empathetic leadership and servant leadership, and that really comes from the top down, from our CEO Stephen Goldberg. Um, but really, what that means is, what can I do? What are the blockages that are happening for you that I can help with? Whether that's just being a sounding board and giving advice, or whether that's saying like, oh, okay, I need to go, talk to, a leader of another team to make sure that we kind of like unstick whatever's happening in the process. But really thinking that through, and then helping my team prioritize what should be immediately in front of them, right? In marketing, as in any vertical within, a large company, there are myriad things that you have to get done, and you've got these, near term, medium term, and long term goals, and trying to prioritize those things on a daily and weekly basis can be really challenging. And so, one thing I do with my team is think about like, what are the small goals that we can accomplish this week, where at the end of the week, if that's what if we've completed those things, then we've been successful. And all of those things then serve our larger medium term and long term goals, right? Because if you can nail that, hey, we had a successful week. You stack a couple of successful weeks, you're going to have, you're going to meet those medium term and long term goals. And it's also, in marketing, as in many other functions, the wins can be kind of sporadic, right? Like if you're working towards like a huge launch in 12 months, you really don't want to wait till after 12 months to be like, all right, we were successful, let's celebrate. Like that can be really stressful. So finding those points to celebrate, and the small victories is really important. Another big part of my job is working with the other teams and essentially determining our strategy when it comes to the rollout of new products, new launches, how we message that to the market, what is the, both quantitative and qualitative research that we're ingesting to inform the messaging around our launches. And so, how are we going to push this out? What is that rollout strategy going to look like? What do I need from the other teams? And we go from there. And then lastly, I mean, we're an enterprise sales organization. So I always say, a big part of my job is making sure that sales is successful. So meeting regularly with the sales team and asking them, what do you need? What are you missing? What are you hearing in your conversations with the end users that we can be helpful, that we can create, better pathways for you or make it more seamless in your process.
Okay. That's a really good point. Also, I really enjoyed the breaking down of the big goal into manageable chunks, right? Yep. Counting the small wins, keep it, just more manageable, really, and being able to just go over it on a weekly basis and say, okay, what have we achieved this week? And it's process driven, but also in a way, you just see how you're achieving the bigger goal by counting the small things, right? Yeah. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds silly, but like a big part of being a good what I've learned from some of the good leaders that I look at is like, you want to be able to have strong morale on your team. And how do you have strong morale? Like, it's not glossing over mistakes or anything like that, but it's having things to celebrate on a regular basis. Make sure that the team feels momentum. We've all seen it. I'm a big sports fan. Certainly, you see momentum a lot in sports, right? Where it's just this like ethereal thing that all of a sudden takes over a football match, a soccer match, whatever, where it's like all of a sudden, this team is now playing really, really well. Well, no, they got momentum. They had this, couple good passes, a couple key, close calls, and now they feel the momentum. And the same thing works in our teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Momentum is another good one for sure. Speaking of, we're coming towards the end of our episode here, Drew. So I would love us to jump into our rapid fire segment of the podcast. And really, what we do here is just a few questions, rapid fire, to keep things light and engaging. Would you be ready for that?
Sure.
All right. So do you prefer watching, reading, or listening when it comes to content?
Reading.
Okay. What's the latest book or article, whatever piece of content that you read, that you picked up? Were there any gems or ideas that really stuck with you in it?
Oh, that's a good one. I did read a piece of content, and I don't know who it was from, just the other day, about like how much performance is becoming an important part of the conversion process for e-commerce brands. And it was a really good study behind it. So I'll have to find that. Maybe we can link it in the article. But it was very well done. It was very to the point.
All right. Sounds good. If you had a magic wand and could fix one frustrating thing with your marketing life with tech, what would it be?
Oof. I think getting all the systems to talk to each other a little bit easier. We're in Asana and Figma and Illustrator and like all these things, and just getting them to connect is, I guess why Zapier exists, but that is a big challenge.
Now, trust me, you're not the first to mention this. So someone out there is working on it for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
What's one repetitive task that you love to put on autopilot forever?
Oh man, these are good questions. Laundry? Is that an acceptable answer?
I think so. Yeah. It doesn't have to be strictly related to marketing or work. Yeah. Laundry is a good one for sure. All right. Last one. So if you could go back and give your past self a quick pep talk at the start of your journey, what advice would you drop, Drew?
I think to have the ability to always take a step back. Sometimes, we are in moments that feel like this is it. This is the sky is falling, or this is the thing that if I don't get this right, it all comes crumbling down. And I think we all have moments in our career where we can look back and be like, wow, I really blew that out of proportion, or that was not at all what I made it out to be. And so, it's not to say don't take things seriously and don't, put a little bit of pressure on yourself to be the best you can be, but also understand that these things aren't generally as large of obstacles as we think they can be. And certainly when you're early in your career, again, it feels like you're kind of like, this is the one moment that will define me. And I've found that that's not the case. You have plenty of moments to define, redefine, and continue to grow. And if you go in with sort of just like an openness and willingness to learn and to make mistakes, you're going to be a lot more successful.
Well, listen, I love that piece of wisdom. And if I were to encapsulate all of that for myself, the way I'm hearing it, it's one word, it's grace, right? Just have grace for yourself, and
give yourself grace.
It will be all right.
Yeah. 100%.
Very good. Drew, I want to thank you a lot for being on the show with us today. I also want to give you the last word. So if someone forgets everything about the interview today, what is the one thing that they should remember about your company?
Performance. I think that's at the end of the day, that's what we're about. So, you're working on a big project, you need something to be performant. You need it to be deployed at scale. That's what Harper's about.
Love it. Love it. If someone wants to check you guys out, where can they go?
At the airing of this podcast, there will probably be a redirect because we're working on a new domain, but currently it's harpersystems.dev, DEV, and that will redirect to our new domain when I think this podcast.
All right, exciting things to come. We talked about it offline a little bit, but yeah, I'm curious to see what's going on there for sure.
Yeah, very very exciting stuff. So thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you, Drew. You have a great one.